This ugly, scratched quarter might look like it belongs in a coin jar, but one seemingly ordinary Washington quarter shocked collectors by selling for tens of thousands of dollars. Even more surprising, some of the most valuable quarters aren't shiny or beautiful at all. They're the worn, dirty, overlooked coins that people spend every day without a second glance. Before you cash in that spare change, you'll want to check every quarter in your pocket, because one small detail could turn a 25-cent coin into a payday worth thousands. The 1981p Washington quarter is one of those coins that most people would never think twice about. It's the kind of quarter that gets tossed into a coffee can, dropped into a vending machine, or left forgotten in the bottom of a drawer for decades. Millions of Americans handled these coins every day, and because they were so common, nobody imagined that some examples would one day become highly sought after by collectors. But that's exactly what happened, and today a seemingly ordinary 1981p quarter can be worth far more than 25 cents. Imagine cleaning out an old jar of change that has been sitting on a shelf since the 1980s. The coins are dirty, worn, and scratched from years of use. Most people would assume every quarter inside is worth face value. Yet hidden among those ordinary coins could be a 1981p quarter that collectors would eagerly pay serious money to own. The exciting part is that many valuable examples don't look special at first glance. Back in 1981, the United States Mint produced millions of quarters for circulation. These coins were made to be spent, not saved. Unlike older silver quarters, the 1981p contains no silver, which is one reason so many people overlook it today. They see a modern quarter and immediately assume it cannot be valuable. That assumption has caused countless potentially valuable coins to remain hidden in collections, coin jars, and pocket change. What makes the 1981p quarter so interesting is its condition rarity. While millions were struck, very few survived in exceptional condition. Most entered circulation immediately and picked up scratches, dents, discoloration, and wear from everyday use. As years passed, the number of truly outstanding examples became surprisingly small. Collectors searching for high-grade coins discovered that finding a beautiful 1981p quarter was much harder than expected. This creates a fascinating situation. A coin that was once common becomes valuable because almost nobody bothered to preserve it. Think about that for a moment. The very reason people ignored these quarters is the same reason some of them are now worth impressive amounts of money. When everyone spends a coin and nobody saves it, top-quality survivors become rare. Now here's where things get even more exciting. Many collectors search for sharp details on Washington's hair, strong lettering, and clean surfaces. A quarter that escaped heavy circulation can attract significant attention. Even a coin that appears ordinary at first glance might deserve a closer look. Sometimes the difference between a common quarter and a valuable one comes down to details most people never notice. Picture someone paying for groceries and receiving a handful of change. Among the coins is a 1981p quarter. It has a little dirt around the edges and some light toning from age. Instead of spending it again, they take a closer look. The date is clear. The details remain strong. The surfaces show less wear than expected. Suddenly, that quarter starts looking a lot more interesting. Stories like this are one reason coin collecting remains so popular. Valuable coins often hide in plain sight. They don't announce themselves. They don't come with warning labels. They simply blend in with ordinary money until someone recognizes what they have found. Another reason collectors watch for the 1981p quarter is the possibility of finding unusual examples with mint-related characteristics. While most coins are normal, collectors love examining older circulation coins because surprises occasionally appear. A coin that seemed damaged or unattractive might actually possess features that make it desirable. This is why experienced collectors rarely dismiss a coin without looking carefully. Many people make the mistake of judging a coin too quickly. If it looks dirty, they assume it has no value. If it has discoloration, they think it is ruined. But coin collecting doesn't always work that way. In fact, cleaning a coin can often reduce its value. Some collectors prefer original surfaces because they tell the story of the coin's journey through history. A quarter that has aged naturally may be more appealing than one that has been aggressively polished. The 1981p quarter also benefits from nostalgia. For many Americans, these coins represent a specific era. They circulated during a time of arcade games, cassette tapes, and pay phones. Every scratch and mark reflects decades of use. Holding one today is like holding a small piece of everyday American history. As interest in coin collecting has grown, more people have begun searching through old change. That increased attention has revealed just how difficult it can be to locate exceptional 1981p quarters. The result is strong collector demand whenever a truly impressive example appears. Some high-grade specimens have sold for amounts that would surprise anyone who thinks all quarters are worth only 25 cents. If you decide to check your own quarters, start with the date. Look for 1981 and the small p mint mark. Then examine the coin carefully. Pay attention to the details, the overall appearance, and how much wear is present. Even if the coin looks slightly dirty or toned, don't automatically dismiss it. Sometimes the most overlooked coins turn out to be the most interesting. The real lesson of the 1981p quarter is that appearances can be deceiving. A coin doesn't need to sparkle like new jewelry to be valuable. It doesn't need to look perfect to deserve attention. Some of the most exciting discoveries begin with coins that appear completely ordinary. They sit unnoticed in drawers, piggy banks, and old collections until someone takes a closer look. And that's exactly why this quarter earns a place on our list. It reminds us that hidden value often exists where nobody expects it. The next time you receive change, take a moment before spending it. That worn-looking quarter might not be ordinary at all. It could be one of the coins collectors have been searching for, waiting patiently to reveal its true worth after decades of being overlooked. The 1983D Washington quarter is the perfect example of why you should never judge a coin by its appearance. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary quarter that has spent decades bouncing around in cash registers, glove compartments, and kitchen drawers. Most people wouldn't even bother picking one up off the sidewalk. Yet some examples of this overlooked coin have stunned collectors with values that reach into the thousands of dollars, turning what appears to be pocket change into a serious collectible. What makes this story so fascinating is that the 1983D quarter was never supposed to be special. It was produced for everyday commerce. People used it to buy coffee, pay parking meters, and make phone calls from pay phones. Nobody was setting these coins aside for future generations. In fact, many Americans treated them as completely disposable. If a quarter became scratched, dirty, or discolored, nobody cared. It was still worth 25 cents, and that was all most people thought about. But years later, collectors began noticing something unusual. While millions of 1983D quarters had been struck, finding examples in exceptional condition was surprisingly difficult. Most had entered circulation immediately and stayed there for years. They picked up wear, dents, nicks, and scratches from constant handling. Because so few were saved when new, top-quality survivors became far scarcer than many people realized. That discovery changed everything. Suddenly, collectors who once ignored the 1983D quarter started paying attention. Coin dealers began searching through rolls. Hobbyists started examining jars of old change. People who had never looked closely at their quarters before began checking dates. And as demand increased, values for the finest examples climbed dramatically. Imagine opening an old coffee can filled with coins collected over decades. Inside are hundreds of quarters, all mixed together. Most are worn and ordinary. Then you spot a 1983D. At first it doesn't seem important. It has a little dirt around the edges and some natural toning from age. But instead of spending it, you decide to take a closer look. The details are sharper than expected. The surfaces show less wear than other coins from the same era. Suddenly, that quarter becomes much more interesting. That's the excitement of coin collecting. Treasure rarely announces itself. Valuable coins often hide among common ones, waiting for someone curious enough to notice them. The 1983D quarter has developed a reputation among collectors because so many examples were heavily circulated. Think about how unusual that is. A coin can become valuable not because it was rare when it was made, but because so few people preserved it properly. When everyone spends a coin and almost nobody saves it, finding a well-preserved example decades later becomes a real challenge. Many viewers watching this video probably have old change stored somewhere in their homes. Maybe it's in a dresser drawer. Maybe it's in a piggy bank that hasn't been opened for years. Maybe it's in a jar sitting on top of a refrigerator. Hidden in those collections could be coins that have been overlooked for decades. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that a coin must look beautiful to be valuable. That simply isn't true. Some collectors spend hours examining coins that appear dull or dirty because they understand that appearance alone doesn't tell the whole story. A coin with original surfaces and strong details can be far more desirable than one that has been cleaned or polished. In fact, cleaning a coin is often one of the worst things a person can do. Many people think they are improving a coin by making it shine. Unfortunately, collectors usually prefer coins that retain their natural appearance. The scratches left behind by cleaning can reduce collector interest. That's why experienced collectors often leave older coins exactly as they found them. The 1983D quarter teaches an important lesson. Value comes from scarcity and demand, not from how shiny a coin looks. Some of the most valuable coins in collections today have natural toning, slight discoloration, or an appearance that casual observers might overlook. As the years passed, the number of surviving 1983D quarters in outstanding condition remained surprisingly small. Meanwhile, collector demand continued to grow. That combination created the perfect recipe for higher values. Whenever exceptional examples appear on the market, they attract attention from people eager to add them to their collections. Picture a collector sitting at a table during a coin show. Hundreds of coins are displayed in cases all around the room. Visitors walk by searching for something special. Then a remarkable 1983D quarter catches someone's eye. The details are crisp. The preservation is impressive. Suddenly, multiple collectors become interested. What began life as a simple 25-cent coin now commands serious attention. Stories like these inspire people to search through their own change. After all, every valuable coin had to come from somewhere. Many were discovered in circulation. Others were found in inherited collections. Some sat unnoticed for decades before someone realized their significance. Another reason collectors love the 1983D quarter is that it represents a forgotten era of American pocket change. During the early 1980s, people weren't thinking about future collector value. They were focused on everyday life. That means countless coins were spent, worn down, and eventually lost. The survivors tell a story about a different time in American history. Every scratch on a circulated quarter represents a journey. Maybe it passed through dozens of states. Maybe it sat in a cash register for years. Maybe it was carried in someone's pocket every day. Those marks reflect decades of real-world use. And that history adds character to the coin. If you decide to search for a 1983D quarter, start with the date and mint mark. Look closely at the overall condition. Pay attention to how much wear is visible. Compare it to other quarters from the same period. You might be surprised by what you find. The key is not to dismiss a coin simply because it looks old, dirty, or unimpressive. Some of the most exciting discoveries begin that way. A coin that appears ordinary can turn out to be far more valuable than anyone expected. That possibility is what keeps collectors searching year after year. Every handful of change contains potential. Every coin jar holds mystery. Every old quarter deserves a second look. The 1983D Washington quarter reminds us that hidden treasures often hide in plain sight. It spent decades being overlooked by millions of people who assumed it was nothing special. Yet today, collectors know better. They understand that some of these quarters are far harder to find than their original mintage numbers suggest. So before you spend your next quarter, take a moment to check the date. Look for that small D mint mark. Examine the details carefully, because somewhere out there, a forgotten 1983D quarter is still waiting to be discovered, and the person who finds it may be holding far more than 25 cents in their hand. If there is one quarter that proves ordinary pocket change can become extraordinary, it is the 1965 Washington quarter. At first glance, this coin doesn't look impressive. In fact, many examples appear dull, scratched, stained, or heavily worn after decades of circulation. Most people see a 1965 quarter and immediately toss it aside, without giving it a second thought. But that simple mistake could cause someone to overlook a coin that has fascinated collectors for years and, in some cases, sold for astonishing amounts of money. The story begins during one of the most important periods in American coin history. In the early 1960s, rising silver prices created a major challenge for the United States Mint. People were pulling silver coins from circulation and saving them because the metal inside was becoming increasingly valuable. As silver disappeared from everyday commerce, the government needed a solution. That solution arrived in 1965. For the first time in generations, Washington quarters would no longer be made primarily from silver. Instead, a new copper-nickel-clad composition was introduced. To most Americans, it seemed like a small change. The quarter still looked similar. It still spent the same. It still bought the same things. Yet behind the scenes, the coin marked the beginning of a completely new era. Because the transition was so significant, collectors have always paid special attention to 1965 quarters. They represent a turning point in U.S. coinage, and that historical importance alone makes them interesting. But the real excitement comes from the fact that some examples have become surprisingly valuable. Imagine reaching into an old jar of coins inherited from a parent or grandparent. You dump the contents onto a table and begin sorting through the quarters. Most dates seem ordinary. Then you notice 1965. It looks worn from years of use. Maybe it has dark toning around the edges. Maybe the surface appears dirty. Most people would spend it without hesitation. Yet experienced collectors know this is exactly the kind of coin that deserves a closer look. One reason the 1965 quarter attracts attention is that unusual examples occasionally surface where they are least expected. Collectors love examining these coins because they never know what they might find. A quarter that spent decades hidden away could reveal characteristics that make it stand out from millions of others. That possibility creates excitement every time someone searches through old change. Think about how many people handled 1965 quarters over the years. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, banks, and vending machines. Millions of Americans carried them in pockets and purses. Most never imagined that decades later collectors would be studying those same coins with magnifying glasses and paying serious money for exceptional examples. The fascinating thing about coin collecting is that value often hides where nobody expects it. A coin doesn't need to sparkle like it just left the mint. It doesn't need to look perfect. Sometimes a coin that appears unattractive to the average person can be highly desirable to a collector. That idea surprises many newcomers to the hobby. They assume older coins must be shiny to have value. In reality, original surfaces often matter more than bright surfaces. A naturally aged coin can tell a story that polished metal simply cannot. Consider a quarter that has survived for more than 60 years. Every scratch, mark, and sign of wear reflects its journey through history. It may have traveled across multiple states. It may have been used during some of the most memorable decades in modern American life. It witnessed changing fashions, changing technology, and changing generations. That history gives the coin character. The 1965 quarter is also famous because so many people overlook it. Unlike older silver quarters that immediately attract attention, a 1965 quarter often blends in with modern pocket change. Most people see the date and assume there is nothing special about it. That means valuable examples can remain hidden for years before someone finally notices them. Collectors understand that rarity isn't always obvious. Sometimes the rarest finds are hiding among the most common-looking coins. Imagine, over the years, remarkable 1965 quarters have appeared in auctions and private collections, proving that even coins from this transitional era can command significant attention. Whenever stories like these spread through the collecting community, more people begin checking their own change. That creates a treasure hunt effect. Suddenly, old coin jars become exciting again. Forgotten collections are pulled from closets. Family members gather around kitchen tables to sort through coins that have been untouched for decades. Everyone wonders the same thing. Could there be something valuable hiding in plain sight? The answer is sometimes yes. Another reason the 1965 quarter remains popular is its connection to a major shift in American history. This wasn't just another year. It represented the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Coins minted during periods of change often attract collector interest because they tell an important story. When you hold a 1965 quarter, you're holding more than 25 cents. You're holding a piece of a historic transition that affected every American who used money. That connection makes the coin memorable in ways that many later quarters are not. For viewers watching this video, the lesson is simple. Never assume a coin has no value because it looks worn or ordinary. Some of the most exciting discoveries begin with coins that appear completely unremarkable. The collector who finds a hidden treasure usually isn't the person looking for perfection. It's the person willing to look closely. If you come across a 1965 quarter, take a moment before spending it. Examine the date carefully. Look at the details. Notice the overall condition. Even if the coin appears dirty or scratched, remember that appearances can be deceiving. Countless valuable collectibles have been overlooked because someone assumed they were too common to matter. The 1965 Washington quarter serves as a reminder that history often hides in everyday objects. Millions were made, millions were spent, and millions were forgotten. Yet decades later, collectors continue searching for the best examples because they understand something most people miss. Sometimes the most ordinary-looking coin in the pile is the one worth investigating. And that's why the 1965 quarter deserves its place on this list. It may look like nothing more than spare change, but beneath that ordinary appearance lies a fascinating story, a major chapter in American coinage history, and the possibility of surprising value. The next time you spot one in a coin jar, don't ignore it. That humble quarter might be carrying far more significance than its worn appearance suggests. The 1972 Washington quarter is one of those coins that millions of Americans have seen, handled, and spent without ever realizing it could be worth far more than its face value. It doesn't look rare. It doesn't look glamorous. In fact, many examples look downright ugly after decades of circulation. They're scratched, stained, worn smooth, and sometimes covered with years of dirt and discoloration. Yet hidden among these ordinary-looking quarters are examples that have caught the attention of serious collectors and sold for surprising amounts of money. That's what makes the 1972 quarter such a fascinating coin. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a quarter that has clearly seen better days. The edges are worn. The surface has marks from decades of use. Most people would spend it without a second thought. But what if that same coin turned out to be one that collectors have been searching for? What if a quarter that looks almost worthless actually holds a value far beyond 25 cents? Stories like that are exactly why people continue searching through pocket change every day. Back in 1972, America was a very different place. Gas cost a fraction of what it does today. Cash was king. Credit cards were far less common than they are now. Every day, millions of quarters changed hands in stores, restaurants, and vending machines. The Denver Mint worked hard to produce enough coins to meet the demand, and the 1972 quarter became a familiar sight across the country. Because so many were made, nobody expected them to become collectible. People didn't save rolls of them. They didn't place them carefully into albums. They simply spent them. And that widespread circulation is one of the reasons collectors pay attention to the coin today. Think about what happens when a coin circulates for 50 years. It gets dropped on sidewalks. It gets tossed into cash drawers. It rubs against other coins in pockets and purses. Every day adds a little more wear. Eventually, details begin to soften. Surfaces become marked. The coin starts looking old and tired. Now imagine finding one that somehow escaped much of that damage. That's where the excitement begins. Collectors know that truly attractive examples of heavily circulated dates can be surprisingly difficult to locate. A coin that survived in unusually nice condition stands out immediately. The difference between a heavily worn quarter and a well-preserved one can be dramatic, and that difference often influences collector demand. But condition isn't the only reason people search for 1972 quarters. Part of the appeal comes from the simple fact that valuable coins often hide where nobody expects them. Most people focus on famous rare coins that they will probably never encounter. Meanwhile, potentially valuable quarters continue sitting in change jars and old collections across the country. That's what makes searching so exciting. Every handful of coins presents a possibility. Every forgotten collection could contain a surprise. Every quarter deserves a closer look. Many viewers watching this video probably have containers filled with old change somewhere in their homes. Maybe it's a coffee can in the garage. Maybe it's a box tucked away in a closet. Maybe it's a jar that has been collecting coins for decades. Hidden inside could be quarters that have not been examined in years. The 1972 quarter is exactly the kind of coin that often goes unnoticed in those collections. At first glance, it blends in with countless other Washington quarters. The design feels familiar. Nothing immediately screams rarity. Yet experienced collectors know that some of the most rewarding discoveries begin with coins that appear completely ordinary. That lesson has been repeated countless times throughout the history of coin collecting. Someone sorts through old change. They notice a date. Curiosity leads them to investigate further. and suddenly they realize they have something far more interesting than expected. The 1972 D quarter has benefited from this kind of attention for years. As collectors continue studying modern-era coinage, many have developed a greater appreciation for coins that were once ignored. Dates that seemed common decades ago can become much harder to find in top condition than people initially assumed. This creates an interesting situation. A coin can be common overall, yet surprisingly scarce in exceptional condition. That combination often attracts collectors. And when collector demand meets limited availability, values can climb. Another reason people enjoy searching for older quarters is the sense of connection they provide to the past. Every 1972 D quarter has a story. It may have traveled across the country. It may have been carried by dozens or even hundreds of different people. It may have sat in cash registers, piggy banks, and coin jars before finally ending up in someone's collection. Each mark on the surface represents a small piece of that journey. To some people, those marks are damage. To others, they are history. That perspective is one of the things that makes coin collecting so unique. The next time you come across a worn 1972 D quarter, consider what it has experienced during the last half-century. While many objects from the 1970s have disappeared, this coin continues to survive. It remains a small but tangible connection to an earlier era. And sometimes that connection comes with surprising value. Collectors frequently remind newcomers not to clean old coins. This advice is especially important because many people assume cleaning will increase value. In reality, the opposite is often true. Original surfaces are usually preferred because they preserve the coin's authentic appearance. A naturally aged quarter often attracts more interest than one that has been aggressively polished. That means even a dirty-looking coin deserves careful consideration. What appears unattractive to one person may be exactly what a collector wants to see. The biggest mistake people make is assuming appearance tells the entire story. It doesn't. Some valuable coins look ordinary. Some rare coins look worn. Some important coins spend decades hidden among common change before anyone notices them. The 1972 D quarter perfectly illustrates that idea. For years, millions of these coins circulated unnoticed. People spent them, ignored them, and forgot about them. Yet today collectors continue searching because they understand that not all surviving examples are equal. The best ones have become increasingly desirable, and the hunt for those coins remains active. That hunt is what keeps the hobby exciting. Every coin jar becomes a treasure chest. Every old collection becomes an adventure. Every quarter becomes a question waiting to be answered. Could this one be special? Could this one be worth more than face value? Could this one be the coin everyone else overlooked? For some lucky collectors, the answer has been yes. And that's why the 1972 D Washington quarter earns its place on this list. It may look dirty. It may look scratched. It may look like nothing more than spare change. But hidden beneath that ordinary appearance is a coin with a fascinating history, strong collector interest, and the potential to surprise anyone willing to take a closer look. The final coin on our list might be the biggest sleeper of them all. The 1989 P Washington quarter is exactly the kind of coin that people overlook every single day. It doesn't contain silver. It isn't ancient. It isn't famous. And because it looks so ordinary, millions of people have spent these quarters without ever imagining that some examples could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right collector. That's what makes the 1989 P quarter such an incredible hidden treasure. Picture a handful of change sitting on a kitchen counter. Among the coins is a worn quarter from 1989. It has a few scratches, a little discoloration, and the dull appearance that comes from decades of circulation. Most people wouldn't even glance at it. They would spend it on a soda, toss it into a tip jar, or drop it into a parking meter without a second thought. Yet that exact attitude is part of the reason this coin has become so interesting. Because nobody expected the 1989 P quarter to be valuable, very few people bothered to save exceptional examples when they were new. They entered circulation almost immediately and began the long journey through the American economy. Year after year, they passed from hand to hand, collecting wear and damage along the way. As a result, finding truly outstanding examples today is much harder than many people realize. That reality surprises a lot of collectors when they first learn about the coin. After all, the 1980s don't feel that long ago to many viewers. It can be difficult to imagine that a coin from 1989 could already be considered a challenging collectible. Yet time has a way of changing how people view everyday objects. What once seemed common gradually becomes harder to find, especially in exceptional condition. Think about how many quarters were spent during the late 1980s and early 1990s. These coins fueled everyday commerce across America. They bought snacks, paid tolls, operated arcade machines, and filled vending machines. Most were never treated as collectibles. They were simply money. And because they were treated like money, many disappeared through wear, loss, and damage. That's where the story becomes exciting. Collectors eventually realized that high-quality 1989p quarters were not nearly as easy to locate as expected. The more people searched, the more obvious the challenge became. While worn examples remained common, truly impressive survivors attracted growing attention. Suddenly, a coin that most people ignored began earning a second look. Imagine sorting through an old family coin collection. You find pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters accumulated over decades. Most are heavily circulated. Then you spot a 1989p quarter that seems unusually well preserved. The details look sharp. The surfaces appear better than average. Instead of spending it, you decide to investigate. That moment of curiosity is where many valuable discoveries begin. Coin collecting rewards observation. The people who make exciting finds are often the people willing to slow down and look closely. The 1989p quarter is a perfect example because it hides in plain sight. It doesn't stand out the way older silver coins do. It doesn't immediately attract attention. Instead, it blends into the background with countless other quarters. That makes it easy to miss. And what's easy to miss is often where opportunity hides. One of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting is that rarity can develop over time. A coin doesn't always need a low mintage to become desirable. Sometimes millions are produced, but very few survive in the condition collectors want. When that happens, demand begins focusing on a surprisingly small group of surviving coins. The 1989p quarter demonstrates this principle beautifully. Millions were struck. Millions circulated. Millions were ignored. But only a tiny fraction survived in the kinds of conditions that attract serious collector attention today. That imbalance creates value. It also creates excitement. Every old coin jar becomes a potential treasure hunt because nobody knows exactly what might be hiding inside. Many viewers probably have coins stored away that haven't been examined in years. Perhaps they're sitting in a drawer. Perhaps they're packed away in a closet. Perhaps they were inherited from a family member and forgotten. Those collections often contain coins that deserve another look. The 1989p quarter is exactly the type of coin people overlook during those searches. At first glance, it seems too modern to matter. But experienced collectors know better. History has shown time and again that overlooked coins can become highly sought after when enough people begin paying attention. Another reason collectors appreciate the 1989p quarter is that it represents the end of an era before the massive wave of state quarters transformed coin collecting in the United States. Back then, Washington quarters maintained a familiar appearance year after year. Most people rarely examined them closely because there was little reason to do so. As a result, countless potentially collectible examples circulated unnoticed. Today, collectors searching through old rolls and collections continue discovering surprises from this period. Every new find reinforces the idea that ordinary-looking coins can hold extraordinary potential. The lesson is simple but powerful. Never assume a coin has no value simply because it appears common. Never dismiss a quarter because it looks dirty. Never ignore a coin because it lacks silver. The history of coin collecting is filled with stories of people who nearly spent valuable coins because they looked ordinary. The 1989p quarter fits perfectly into that tradition. It's the coin people overlook. It's the coin people underestimate. And for that reason, it remains one of the most intriguing modern Washington quarters to search for. Imagine finding one in an old roll from the bank. Imagine discovering one in a forgotten piggy bank. Imagine learning that a quarter everyone else ignored could actually be a desirable collectible. That possibility is what keeps collectors searching year after year. It transforms ordinary change into a treasure hunt. It turns everyday coins into mysteries waiting to be solved. And it reminds us that hidden value often appears in the most unexpected places. So the next time you receive a quarter in change, don't rush to spend it. Check the date. Look for the P mint mark. Examine the coin carefully. Even if it appears worn, scratched, or unattractive, remember that appearances can be deceiving. Because somewhere out there, a forgotten 1989 quarter is still waiting to surprise its owner. And that's exactly why it earns the final spot on our list of valuable quarters that look dirty, damaged, and ordinary, but could be worth far more than anyone expects.